This is my final presentation of Top Scholar and UTSA. So that is very sad, but I'm glad that I made it. And this is very representative of the community that I had while I was here, helping me make it this far. So before I started at UTSA, I always kept a very busy schedule. For example, typical week, guitar classes, dance classes, community club, dance classes again, environmental club, French classes, every single day of every single week. It was over and over and over again. Except that was in 5th grade. So you can imagine how much busier I got every consecutive year. And I honestly think that I just don't know how to exist without constantly doing things. Whether that be doom scrolling or homework or anything. But I think that UTSA was definitely the perfect place to give me so many things and so many options to pick from and things to do. I also want to call attention to the fact that I chose the theme of this presentation to be Claude Monet, parce qu'il est français, but also because when I was little, my mom had this picture book of Monet, and it was my favorite thing in the whole entire world, and that really influenced how I see art and my favorite kinds of art. And yeah, I don't know, like artist and French, and I was like, perfect, but it's very pretty. I hope you guys like it. But so when I was 17, I applied and came to selection, like some of you here, and I got in. And to this day, I was telling my parents yesterday that sometimes I still wake up and I cannot believe that I actually got in, like to this day, because this program has just been so insane. And the mere thought of not having been accepted genuinely is unthinkable, because UTSA Top Scholar has shaped my entire undergrad experience. So I cannot imagine what it would have been like without it. Here I am with my cohort. That was actually my idea, to get in the bed like that and take that photo. And everyone uses it for every single presentation slide ever when talking about my cohort. So I'm glad that it's representative of that unity that we had that first night, especially first night, trauma bonding to the max. Everyone just spewing all of our histories to each other. It was very sweet. So I will commence chronologically because that's just how my brain works. And so we begin with freshman year. And I came in with my psychology and French minor pretty far ahead, thanks to AP and DC credits. But then, of course, I had to pick a second major because I didn't want to waste this scholarship, this 4-year scholarship that was given to me. And so I had to figure out something to do. And my first year, for a while, I was thinking, well, should I do astronomy? Should I do law? What should I do? And I landed on neuroscience because that had always been a passion of mine, amongst others, but also because so many of the credits overlapped and all of it was things that I was interested in. So by the end of my freshman year, that's kind of where I was at. So I was like, okay, I need to add the second major like ASAP. And so I did. But this is what my first year looked like in terms of classes. And a lot of these are for juniors, which put me in a lot of situations where I was forced to sink or swim, which can be good. But at other times, when it comes to group projects where everyone in your group is in their 20s and you're 18 years old and no one's working but you, it kind of changes how you see college and how you see wisdom. Because for a lot of people, wisdom is the older you are, the smarter you are, right? And most people will tell you that that's just not true. You can say it's experience, you can say that it's thought processes, but at the end of the day, everyone has their own experiences, and we cannot tell just by looking at someone what your wisdom level is at, you know? But some things that I was involved with my freshman year, I joined the poetry club, and then I stood up there and I read one of my poems that was really sad and I made myself cry, so I never went back. But I applaud myself for trying. I joined the psychology student organization, which was honestly a really good time. I learned about a lot of service opportunities and I got to know more about neuropsychology. And that's kind of another opening that I had during my time here to know that that's what I wanted to do. And then I was also TSSO junior director, which historically doesn't do much, but we're trying to change that. But it gave me an insight into what the Top Scholar Board of Directors looked like and how it worked. And then, of course, I was accepted into Rising Researchers. And so every week we had a meeting, and that was really interesting because we were not just talking about one domain of research, but different fields. And that also really opened my eyes to different techniques and different people and different areas of expertise. But this is what I did in AIS. So funnily enough, I was the only student in my AIS class that actually collected real data. And so what I did was I asked a bunch of people from Guadalupe Hall to fill out a survey. And this is what I came up with. The results were not conclusive because I did not know what I was doing back then. But nonetheless, I realized that students really do not know about sleep hygiene. They do not know that your ADHD pills can affect what your sleep looks like that night, depending on when you take them. They don't know that caffeine can last up to 6 hours. They don't even know that caffeine is as addictive as it actually is. A lot of people have very bad sleep hygiene, and we don't realize that. And you get your 8 hours of sleep and you wake up and you think, why am I still exhausted? It's because the quality isn't great. But I didn't learn anything from this because my sleep is terrible. I didn't sleep last night, but it was a good thought process into thinking of how can I actually start doing things. And I also created this hypothetical organization in my AIS class that was the Sleep Circle organization. And it was supposed to help the homeless in San Antonio get better sleep quality and also collect information from students on campus to see whether after all of these years of this hypothetical club's work into the UTSA community, if sleep quality actually got better by offering things like socks, like sleep masks, recommendations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But again, it got me thinking and it got the wheels rolling about what you could do in college. And then I found out about Dr. Wicha, and I found this out because Adi said something about some researcher somewhere whose name she did not recall, but something about neuropsychology. And I was like, Adi, that literally gives me nothing, but thank you. And so I went and I looked through so many departments looking for Nicole Y. Wicha, and I finally found her. She's back there. Hello. But this lab was exactly what I was interested in doing. It was a combination of neuroscience, of psychology, of cognition, and of language. And this lab genuinely really changed the way that I saw like neuropsychology, I guess, because Dr. Wicha asked me a question, what do you think that neuropsychologists do? And I said, honestly, I don't know. I do not know. But that really, again, got the ball rolling about what exactly is it that I want to do? What populations do I want to work with? Do I want to stick to research? Do I want to go clinical? And luckily, she let me in, and I built a bed under the desk. So she let us do that too. That was really cool. But I made good friends here. And again, this was my first real research experience, and it was really cool. I really enjoyed the lab. Here we see Tony writing on my things and the research posters that we had going out to try to recruit people. And this was honestly the first time that I used my Spanish in a professional and STEM setting. And that gets me kind of emotional because for a very long time, I thought that if I spoke English better, that I would get more opportunities. And the story behind that is that when I was in first grade, I was bullied a lot for my accent by my teachers and my classmates alike. And I didn't realize it was bullying. When people tell you trees are outside, Anna, because I go 1-2 tree, because I can't pronounce it. But I'm so grateful that this lab had me interviewing people in Spanish. And I'm so grateful that I got to use my maternal language for STEM, because that opened, again, even more for me. And my parents, they're incredibly smart, but both of them went to university and they both did their master's in Mexico. So we had no idea what the college system in the in the United States looked like. And so I also think that had it not been for Top Scholar, I would have not known how to navigate it, and I would not have found the opportunities that I did at all. But nonetheless, I learned a lot from this lab, and I loved it, and I learned what an ERP was, and I learned about EEG, and I really, really, really enjoyed interviewing people. And I didn't think that I would ever enjoy something like that, because when I was first interested in psychology, I knew that I did not want to be a therapist. I did not want to sit in a room and talk to someone all day, until I actually did it. And I realized that it's actually really interesting how much you can get in terms of scientific data, in terms of numbers from talking with people. And I learned about all of these measures for TBIs, for sleep quality, and again, just assessing language in English and in Spanish. And I was working under a grad student named Dr. Grenier, who is a native French speaker. So that also opened up my eyes to, what opportunities there are. There was also now a Dr. Flotter who worked on a submarine to get funding for TBI research. And I was like, okay, the gears are turning again. What can I do to get funding for research one day? But then another opportunity came along as well. So I went to Madam Hall, had never spoken to her, had never met her. This was through the help of Margot, an UTSA top scholar alumni, who told me, Isa, the International School of San Antonio, that's where you have to go. You have to contact Madam Hall. Right, I'm working with the kids right now as we're texting. You would love it here. Because she knew that I spoke French. She knew that I was interested in speaking French and continuing my French education. And so she recommended it to me. I went to Madam Hall. I said, je veux faire un stage. And she said, okay, let's message them and see what's up. And they hired me. They liked my proficiency. They liked how I had experience working with kids. And that was the team that I worked very closely with. And it was the beginning of a very long experience at the International School of San Antonio. So at first I was just doing 150 hours of internship. And so that looked like 15 hours per week. And it was a lot. Because shaking maracas for toddlers when I know I have an exam I haven't studied for at 3 p.m. is actually really stressful when you think about it. But I had to shake the maracas nonetheless and do a little song and a little dance. But I loved it. I love working with this age group, 3 to 6, because they're so creative and they're so sweet and they're so funny unintentionally. But we had so many visits from the consulate, from UT Health Center. We had French teenagers come to visit the international school. I think several members of the Spurs actually went to visit the school too. So that was also a very interesting experience because I didn't know anything about the Spurs or basketball. And I was like, why are you so tall? And I was like, oh, right, that's what you do for work. And I was actually teaching some of their kids at this school. And that also got me deeper into the Francophone community in San Antonio. And then pretty quickly, I think a week or two in, they offered me a Saturday job too. So now I was going for 15 hours every single morning except Wednesdays. And then on Saturdays, I was now going to teach French. And they were so sweet. Every single person in this little school is so kind and so intelligent and so polyglot. It was so inspiring. But I continued on. So there were a lot of service opportunities my freshman year. Here's me with Journey. That's me in a trash can. I got my BLS certification. I do have to renew that, but that was a very cool opportunity that was also given to us by Top Scholar. We did Adopt a Spot. We helped out at the Catholic Charities. We did food stocking, and a lot of these are on different occasions, but nonetheless, very fun time. The not so fun time is studying, as we all know. It's very fun to talk about extracurriculars, but I studied and I studied and I studied, and that is my disgusting concoction. I liked it, but it was Rockstar energy drink with strawberry milk and sweet foam. And I would drink that to keep awake for several nights. But it helped and it worked because caffeine. And it was a very, very, very fun time writing on the Guadalupe Hall boards. And then I had a class called Experimental Psychology. This class was so interesting because the APA manual became my best friend. I would fall asleep while reading it. I would wake up with the book. I was like reading every single thing about it. And I had to basically write and design a study and actually collect data from students. And this is what I mean when I say that it's difficult to be working in a group project where you are the only freshman and everyone else is upperclassmen and no one is doing the work. But thankfully, that put me in a situation where, again, sink or swim, and I had to figure out how to design a study, how to find sources for it, how to do everything by myself. And I was lucky enough that some of them were actually following instructions. They were just not taking initiative. But it was a very, very, very interesting experience. And then, of course, this is a slide I took from my freshman year exit report about my cat, because back then I was very invested in teaching him voice buttons. That did not work because he is too skinny to press, like he doesn't weigh enough to press them. But he's gotten very good at puzzles. He solves them in under 3 minutes now. So he's pretty good. And then I lost him for 13 hours in downtown Austin. And then I cut off my hair. But we got him back. And this was because for an entire decade, I was donating my hair to Locks of Love in Miami. And so looking back freshman year that I did that, knowing now that it's been a total of 10 years, it's been a total of 10 braids, over 10 feet of hair donated to children that have suffered from alopecia or cancer or burn victims. It feels good, but it feels like it's not enough, you know? And I finally gotten to the point where I'm allowing myself to keep my hair and style it and cut it in the way that I want. But it is something that was so important to me since I was 8 years old that it took me so long to detach myself from thinking that I'm taking care of my hair for someone else. But that was something that I had to come to terms with throughout university as well, that I'm allowed to keep my own hair. And it might sound kind of absurd, but to me, it was something very important. That's neither here nor there, you know, falling through the roof and then cutting your hair. Okay, sophomore year. So sophomore year starts off early summer. I think it was April, June. Yeah, it was June. I was biking and I found the little kitten who had a ruptured eyeball. And this was my first service project of sophomore year because I made it my mission to nurse this kitten back to health. And I realized that if I got close enough to the kitten, it would hiss at me and then I would put a syringe in its mouth and feed it water and like crushed up food. And my parents, again, so loving and supportive, were able to help me and take him to the vet and pay the vet fees because I would have not been able to do that. But we got him taken care of. And then immediately after, I had to leave to Europe. So I didn't get to see him in his little kitten era. But I was so lucky that I was able to travel with my family. The summer of 2023, we went to the Czech Republic. We went to Krakow, Poland. It's me and my little brother. Vienna, Austria. It's me and my dad in Freud's apartment. That was crazy. Lugano and Zurich in Switzerland. Beautiful. It is the only country that has made me cry from how beautiful it is. And then we landed at Oxford, UK. And the reason why we ended up here is because my parents were dropping me off because the fall of 2022, I applied to the Oxford's Lady Margaret Hall summer programs. And I knew it was a very, 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 very slim chances of getting in, but I did somehow as a freshman. And this was my dorm. As you can see, my souvenirs that I bought from the trip. So Freud and Napoleon, that was my decoration. But this was such an interesting experience. It is the most that I have ever learned in such a short period of time because it is writing an essay after writing an essay after writing an essay, and you have to read God knows how many articles and papers and whatnot in like 3 days. And I loved it. I loved it so much. I spent all of my days in the library of Lady Margaret Hall, and I graduated with an A from the class. And I was the youngest person in the program, at least in my class, as far as I know. But it was, again, an experience that opened up my eyes to seeing I can go far. I can study. I can take a class with grad students. I can take a class with doctorate students. I can actually carry my own weight and I can keep up. And that was really eye-opening. And my best friend during this whole program, Mohammed, he was there at the library with me every single day. We were taking 2 different classes, but every time we had a break, we would go do something. We watched the Barbie movie. We went to an escape hunt. And then, I'm not gonna lie, the chips and cheese and beans is really good. I really like it. I can't lie. But yeah, we did it. We graduated from that little summer class, and we are still very much in contact to this day. Yeah, we text like very, very, very often. He's still one of my best friends. And that is, again, when my eyes were open to knowing that when you do go abroad and when you do make connections, those are connections that stay. And I wrote a blog about every single thing. I wrote a lot. I wrote a lot about it on my WordPress, but I blogged every single thing. And then I came back for like a week or two. Felix had gotten better. They had gotten sutures in his eye and removed it. And he was on his way to being perfect and healthy. Although his cat siblings kind of bullied him for the cone, but you know, that's, yeah, he's cute. He's cute. And then immediately after, I went to Italy. And I went for an entire semester, and I was so lucky that I had literally the best roommate I could have had during this experience. Destiny was my roommate, and you can see how close our beds were. We spent basically every single second of every single day together. And it's crazy how I never once got sick of her, and I never once got mad at her, and we never once argued. And what I thought was really interesting too is that we were both fluent in English and Spanish. And I realized that when you are able to switch with fluidity in between languages with someone, and you can express yourself at a moment's whims without having to think of how would I say o sea in English, you know? How would I say this and that? It made us so much closer, and it made her an extension of my family to me because we could speak in Spanish. And also we were learning Italian. And I had been listening to Italian rap since I was 15. And then I watched a John Wick movie in Italian on the way over there. And then somehow the Italian clicked in my brain. And when we landed, I was like ordering, I was like asking people like, oh, are you guys Italian? Oh, you're UTSA. I don't know how that happened, but I was so grateful that I wasn't struggling and that I was still learning. But it was such an amazing experience. I was with a very tight-knit group of friends. There were cats. There were cats outside. I love this one because you look like Felix, but they were the sweetest people. And this was our Italian teacher right here. She was the only professor that we had that year that was not from UTSA. So we did go over there with our UTSA professors. And we were able to, obviously we were living in Urbino. I was living in Casa de la Studentessa, and we were traveling like very frequently. Not every weekend, but like pretty often. So we were able to go to Pesaro, Bologna, Roma, Ravenna, Veneto. Obviously, you can read the rest. But the point is that I got to see so many parts of this country in such a short period of time. And I did it under such excellent guidance. And I would joke with Dr. Gardner over there that she was the Aristotle to my Alexander the Great, because she was leading me in all of these discussions about history. And this is Dr. Bartlett over here. That's my friend Jay. But this was in Matera, which is where they filmed The Passion of the Christ, because it looks like Jerusalem. And it was just such an eye-opening experience, because I realized that, again, you can do STEM, you can do humanities, you can mix it in, you can do anything you want at whatever pace you want, and you can mix however much of anything you want in there. And so the conclusion of my study abroad was that I published a 3-act play. My only experience with the theater is that I was in theater when I was in middle school, and we did a lot of exercises where we had to read through plays, and that's how I got to know what the structure of a play looks like. But I hadn't tapped into that since I was like 11. 13 rather, because it was all of middle school. But I did it anyway. And this play, it was a piece of historical fiction, but it had 36 sources to integrate the history that I was learning in class, the archaeology that we were talking about, the anthropology, the religion, the science, everything that we were talking about. I basically made it culminate in one big project. And I blogged the whole thing again. I wrote over 100 pages of very intense, very detailed blog that, I did not need to do all that, but I like that it's there and I like that it exists. I also went to church every single Sunday while I was here, and there was a guy, one of the altar helpers, that would track me down every single Sunday to make me read. So I would avoid him. I would get there right as the church bells were ringing that it's about to start, solely because I didn't want to read. But I did get the opportunity to read a number of times, and that also helped me with my Italian so much, because the first time that I told them I don't want to read, I don't speak Italian, and I have a very thick accent when I'm speaking Italian. My friend doesn't speak Italian at all. I don't think you want us to be doing this reading. I said that whole thing in Italian. He was like, you have to do it. You're lying. But in any case, currently, I also made a video, a 5-minute study abroad video. This was another situation, unfortunately, in which my teammates were not doing anything. So I made the entire video. Shout out CapCut. But it was, again, an amazing experience. And the last thing that I want to talk about that I see as an accomplishment, a culmination of what I learned here, is that I got the opportunity to present on the history of dissection starting from the 11th century in the Anatomical Theater of Padua, which is an incredibly historic site. And it was such an honor to share the information that I had gathered and I had studied and I had researched with my classmates, with my professors, with my team. And it was, again, never in a billion years would I have thought that I would have done something like that. If anyone here is interested, that's the link to all of my writings. But here are some other pictures that I wanted to share. The architecture, we were with 80 architecture students, so I accidentally learned some things about architecture, but again, it's so beautiful, and it really makes you think about the limitations of infrastructure, but also how far it can really go. And it makes you look at a simple room and think, okay, well, we could have done a little more, or we could have not made the ceiling flood, or we could have, done a little tweak here or there. But I mean, these are masters of architecture, so. But I also had a lot of fun. I was very silly, like usual, as you guys know. I wrote that, obviously. But that's my friend Veronica. Around Halloween, there was like an Italian party going on. And yeah, I guess they celebrate Halloween in Italy pretty hard, at least in Urbino. But I had such a good time, like feeling so comfortable with my friends, with the professors, with the ambiance of the language. And again, there's genuinely no amount of description that I can give to express how important and how life altering this experience was for me. But I was nervous because I was going to go from a semester of myths of human nature, history of medicine, special studies in history, cross-cultural psychology and health, Italian, to general chemistry, which, what is that? I don't know. Like, I came in as a psychology major, And I was excited for the psychology courses, but I was very worried about chemistry. I was also very excited for the French history through cinema class that Dr. Watson teaches, because I am not really a movie kind of person. I don't really watch movies. But, the universe has a way of surprising you. I also got an associate's degree during this time, but I didn't find out about that until a year later. I don't really know how that happened, but I'm very proud of it. Reverse transcript through UTSA. They work magic. But that means I can also now be a substitute teacher, and now I have more opportunities. So that was also something really exciting when I found out about that. I was very content about that. And then that year, coming back from Italy, I was also the peer care director for the Top Scholar Board of Directors. And I had a lot of fun because during my time in Italy, I also learned about cross-cultural psychology. And we learned about a lot of different cultures and a lot of different ways of managing stress, and how in certain parts of the world, people do not focus on holistic care at all. They tell you, oh yeah, sure, you have all of these things wrong with you, but what you're eating, what you're exercising, and how much you're sleeping doesn't matter. Of course it matters. Everything you do matters, But again, I had a lot of good ideas to implement into this. And I like to think that it was a very fun semester for people. I like to think that my events were pretty stress-free, but I really enjoyed it. And then I did continue with the brain, language, and cognition thoughts. And so, yeah. So I was primarily working on two things while I was here. So I was doing the brain math, basically a study in which we want to see how bilinguals who are early age bilinguals are doing math. And so again, never thought about that, did not understand what was going on with that, but Dr. Grenier was very clear about what we were looking for. Dr. Wicha was also having these meetings with us every week, helping us kind of identify what an ERP is and looking at, how we can see these different reactions. And I found out what a gating study is and how it's way more complicated, and I should have never dared to try to do that. But it was a very, 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 again, interesting experience. Yes. And I did continue working for ESA. So this was the spring of 2024. And again, I had a lot more Italian experience in the last semester than French, but I was still having such a good time working there. And then again, I continued doing other activities, and I continued hanging out with friends. And the play that I wrote while I was in Italy, I actually ended up translating into French and Italian, and I performed it for the Colfa Showcase with one of my classmates. And I bought my first lab coats. That was all mine. And then we were also part of a group. I volunteered to go with the current juniors to their camp, and we convinced George to jump off the screamer. So that was really fun. That's George hanging right there. And then, of course, hanging out with friends and doing all the cool things. I also started volunteering with Kinetic Kids. That was actually really fun. I'm not really an outdoorsy person. I'm really not, but it is fun. It is very fun to work with kids. And then, of course, I also went to a conference in Chicago that year. And so I had a friend from high school that was also living there. And I ran into Dr. Bauman while I was over there. So that was a funny coincidence. And that's the research poster that he was presenting there. But it was funny because guess who showed up in Chicago while I was there? My parents. They're like, hey, do you want to hang out with us? And I was like, yeah, of course. But it was genuinely a lot of fun. It was a very good time. And then there were hardships. There were a lot of hardships. Back to the studying, back to grinding. Here you can see me taking turns reading out of different notebooks because I didn't have enough hours in a day. But of course, EOY was always there, emotionally supporting me, or sitting on the notes so I couldn't read them, so I could take a break because he's so thoughtful. And then we had the junior year. Oh, actually, hold on. Maybe we can put something. Yeah. Sorry, I think this might be the wrong version of the slides. I sent a second link. It is a PowerPoint. So far, we're good, but I think there's that changes.
Okay.
Could we possibly change that one really quick? Okay, so I can keep talking about this though.
Please do.
So the classes that I was taking were a very big change from what I expected going to university. Again, I was expecting to just go into psychology and then neuroscience. But in order to go into neuroscience, you have to go through biology, you have to go through chemistry. And I never did AP or dual credit in high school for science or for STEM. And while, yes, I have always been good at STEM, I just had never done it to that degree. And so there were a lot of thoughts that I was having about whether I was going to succeed, whether I was going to lose my 4.0. And then the spring of 2024, I did lose my 4.0, and it was Gen Chem 1 lab. And I called my mom and I was screaming and I was crying and I was losing my mind and my world was falling apart. And she said, it's just a B. I was like, yeah, you're right. And she calmed me down. But that was another turning point in my life that genuinely shifted so much of my perspective, because my parents, when I was growing up, were the ones that were expecting the A's, and not in a pushy, overbearing way, but like, you're capable of it. Why not? And so for me, an A and A and A and A, it's, I've made it so deeply integrated to my identity. Like, oh, A for Anna, A plus, because that's my blood type, like A this, A that, A that. And it just became a symbol of my worth to me. And the moment that I lost my 4.0, that stress of keeping it dissipated. And as soon as I realized that now I can do it to do it, and not because I have to do it, not because I have to keep a 4.0, that was when I actually started enjoying classes and enjoying exams and enjoying all-nighters without the stress of losing it all. Because I knew that even if I got an A- or something, like, I was still focused, I was still learning, and I was still doing enough to keep going on. We'll be able to put it up.
Not immediately.
Okay, it's on the email thread that I sent y'all.
It is.
Yes. Yeah. This is PowerPoint. Or yeah, the PowerPoint, and then there's the Google Slides. It's the Google Slides. Second one. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, we go on. So junior year did not start off well. I'll tell you that. Summer was very difficult. It was very hard. And I cannot tell you why, because I wasn't burnt out. And yes, that stress of the 4.0 had dissipated, but there was something else going on now. And I didn't know what it was. And I tried writing and I tried turning to like my little tapes and card making and poetry and everything, but there was still something there. Now, I was very lucky that summer, my cousin Nicole came to visit from Mexico, and I introduced her to my friend Ellie, and we hung out, and we like met a bunch of friends and everything. And it was a very good distraction, and it was a very, very, very fulfilling summer on the social side. But at the same time, I was still kind of freaking out about more classes to come, about more grades. And, we're maybe barely halfway through, maybe not even, how long is this going to go on for?
I am transitioning and sharing my slide because your updated slideshow.
Thank you so much. I spent the majority of that summer locked up in my room. I lost 20 pounds because I wasn't eating because I was so anxious. And I cannot tell you why. Like, genuinely, I cannot tell you why. Because I've been through tremendous stressors in my life, but I've never gotten to that point. But there was something different about the summer. And I think it's because I was going through stressors, but maybe I was approaching burnout. I don't know. But in any case, I did not want to do anything that summer because I had missed every single person in my family's birthday the year prior, from going to Oxford, from going to Urbino. And yes, it was a tremendous experience and it was great and I loved it, but was it worth it, But when I came back, the imposter syndrome really hit because I realized everyone did things that summer and I didn't. And while I did that on purpose, I still felt so badly about myself. And I had to remind myself that I did that with a purpose and I did that to recover. And I'm so glad that I did, because that junior fall was, what, can I make it bigger? Or
Let's transition to using my device,
Okay, thank you.
updated slides, and then just navigate with the arrow.
Thanks so much. Okay, so this fall of 2024 was the hardest fall semester I've ever had in my life. Not because of grades, not because of social. You can see clearly I had very, very, very good social connections. But for some reason, I had the worst hypochondriac episode of my entire life. And I convinced myself that I was dying every single day. And my friends and my family genuinely got me through that because they were the ones that were grounding me in reality. They were the ones that were distracting me. They were the ones that were taking me out. And then also my chemistry group, which at first I was like, how did I end up friends with these people? But then I was like, okay, they're little brothers. You have to, just let them wrestle on the floor until we can get back to learning chemistry, I guess. But they also became such a fun stress relief because we were all suffering through chemistry together, but it was funny. It was still funny. And we, to this day, still hang out. We went to Biryani Pot a few weeks ago, all of us together. So it was good. It was yummy. It was spicy. And then winter break happened because somehow in the blink of an eye that semester it was over and I did it. And I was on autopilot. And I'll be honest with you, I got 2 Bs that semester. 2 Bs. Because I was just focusing on surviving and I was focusing on getting through it. And I did. And if you're curious, my GPA is currently at 3.95. So we're okay. But in the moment, I was like, I survived and that's what matters. And I don't care about the Bs. Because again, that illusion had broken and I realized that getting through and getting that degree is ultimately what matters. Would I be saying that if I had not had a 3.95? Maybe not, but I'd like to believe that I would because we are not our GPAs and we're not our grades and we're not numbers, whether that be followers or your weight or your grades or any other metric. You are not a number. You are a human being and you're complex and you're multifaceted. And I can say that now, but do I fully believe it? Maybe not, because we grow up so conditioned to think that we're supposed to fit into something. But life continued. Here's me and Michael dressed up as rabbits like we do every Easter, because that is a tradition. There he is, right there, if you want to look at him. And then I was heavily involved with the French department this year because I had the honor of being the president. So we had a group from France come in of French orchestral students. We had a bunch of events downtown and on campus. We had the club's first ever fundraiser. And I'm so proud of how we regrouped because at first things did not start well. The reason why I became president was because there was no one else. And as much as I wanted to do it to not let the club die, I was scared that, hey, I don't know how things work around here. I haven't been here. I've been busy with other things. I've never been on the board of officers. But we regrouped and we had a rough patch, but I asked my officers, what am I doing that is not serving you? And we got right back on track. And I think that that was a huge lesson for the leadership position that I got the next year, but we'll get to that. So again, very involved, fundraisers, making clips. There's me in a little French outfit with the flag. There's Madame Hall. We were having Spurs games. We were having Dr. Watson's book drive. That was so fun. Yoga at the Pearl. It was so much, and going out to eat, and it was so great. And of course, my friendships persevered. And at this point, classes became easier because I was done with the foundational things and I was just building on knowledge that I already knew. I was able to hang out more. There's EOY jumping really high. I was able to go out into the woods with my friends on a little stroll. It was a good time. And I was able to continue with Top Scholar. And being a Top Scholar is an absolute honor. Again, I've said this many times, you've all heard me say this, but it is life-changing. And every single selection is my favorite time of year because we get to give that opportunity to a new group of people and we get to change lives every single year. And there's no words for that. But this year I was an events director for the Top Scholar Student Organization. And I was trying to do like big and little groups. And I think they were really funny. I think it was really cute. We had pretty successful events. We tried designing a new logo for Top Scholar. That didn't work out because of copyright issues, but it brought us closer together, and that's what matters. Lots of events, Thanksgiving, Halloween, more Halloween. Very cute, very fun. And then I had a scavenger hunt where I had to ask Counselor Lozano to let me into every single office of the building. And these were the most important people at UTSA, but I was in their office taking photos. Because why? The scholars are doing a virtual scavenger hunt. You have to let me in. And they did. And I think it was very fun. I designed an entire website for this. So that was also crazy. I also designed code. I also killed Fernando for this. So I think it was great. Ricky, is this supposed to be a song or something? I also used my mom's phone number to make a fake group me of Greg from Sherlock to be the one giving them clues. So thank you, Mom. You have a group me account now. And then I had the honor of being chosen to go to the USPA conference in West Virginia with Jonah. And if not already, this experience gave me a true eye-opening that Top Scholar is unique. Like you hear issues and you hear about things that other special programs have going on at their universities, and I'm like, Christy would never. Oh my gosh, like that's crazy. Fernando and George would never. And then also I convinced everybody that Jonah was my little brother because I had these photos from some childhood friend, and he is too shy to lie. So he would just get quiet and get red. And everyone believed it until the last day. So that was really funny. And then I realized that because I had, yes, fallen in love with neuroscience, I was completely neglecting psychology. I had finished my psychology bachelor's. I had finished being like in the club of psychology. I was now moving on to Top Scholar and the French department. I was neglecting psychology. My first love, I was neglecting it. And so I made the decision to kind of divide my time. So I ended up doing kind of 2 years in neuroscience lab and then psychology lab. And oh, actually, wait, now we can kind of go back to this one for 1 second. Sorry, guys. Where are we? Oh, maybe it's not here. Is it? Okay, never mind. But the point is, I was working on different projects now, and they were not at all like what I was used to, like on the neuroscience side of things. Oh, here we are. So these are the two that I was kind of helping with. I was also really happy to produce pilot data, but sometimes I was so tired that I knew that the pilot data would just be full of alpha waves because I was so exhausted that I think once for Tony's pilot data, I chugged an entire energy drink and then I got like EEG'd up so that we could avoid the alpha waves that you get when you're like falling asleep. But again, we were doing time yoked studies. I helped Tara, Dr. Slaughter with a word association study. I really enjoyed the math brain study because again, as a bilingual, I actually found out that I don't see numbers the same way that other people do. And Dr. Witchett was like, maybe you have some sort of synesthesia, because I found out that I really don't see numbers the way that other people do. And it's not because I'm bilingual, it's because something's not right there. But nevertheless, spring 2025. Because of Top Scholar, I was asked to present Dr. Mecca to our SSB. And I did. And I was like, hey, Christy said you have an open spot in your lab. Mind you, I had never worked in a psychology lab before. I did not know what to expect. I just wanted to, again, get my grippers on some kind of psychology. What are we looking at? Is this now qualitative data versus the quantitative data that I've been doing? Like, what are we doing? And I ended up contributing to a lot of things. I'm actually listed as a co-author for a paper that we have pending review right now. But this is, and I will say this is not the topic that I'm interested in doing career-wise. And yet it has given me a value, like a very valuable skill set that I didn't know that psychology intrinsically had. And that might be a naive statement to say, but that's just because I hadn't experienced that. I couldn't imagine it. But again, because of my first lab, I realized how much I liked interviewing people. And then I spent an entire semester interviewing Spanish and English. I ended up doing translation for them while I was doing my next opportunity that I'll talk about. But I realized, I can still work remote from like another state or another country. I can do things for you guys. So that was fun. And then I got offered by ISA to, instead of teaching French, to teach Spanish. And so I did, and it was great, and it was fun. This is where we get to that part where I say I had been donating my hair for 10 years. It's incomplete. There's one missing, there's 5. But this is when I decided to keep my hair long because I felt like I had given myself the right to say that I had done enough. Also, my junior year, my favorite class was experimental. Oh, sorry, it was neurobiology. I'm laughing because my lab partner is sitting right there. This was the wackiest class. It was great. Like genuinely what we were doing right here, you can see that we were basically seeing if ion channels can be correlated at all if you can classically condition them to recall better. But it was not all serious. We were very silly, again, per usual. But I really enjoyed designing studies and coming up with little things and little things to test. This is what we were feeding the crawfish, by the way, cat food. And then Chloe and I were just, yeah, here are gum flavors. We're going to experiment with this. We're going to experiment with that. And again, I got to learn about different ion channels in the tongue and how pain is interpreted in the body and how just the right amount of pain can help you encode better, but more, higher cortisol, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you remember way worse. And then also we found a cheater in the class. I'm not going to say who, but I had to kind of analyze everyone's handwriting to match their first trial with their second, and that took hours. And then I got a crazy opportunity. Crazy. I was accepted into the Bourne Awards to go learn French in Senegal. And so we started the senior year. I went to the convocation in DC, in Washington. That was crazy. That was crazy. I had never been in a room with so many like CIA agents in my life. That was trippy. And then over the summer, I met a great group of friends that some of us were going to Senegal, some of us were going to Tanzania. But again, silliest group of people I've ever met. But now we're all yelling at each other and being silly in like 5 different languages. So then you kind of lose track about who's being silly and who's being serious. But we did a lot. We had a lot of fun. And I'm proud to call these people my friends, and I'm still in contact with them. And yeah, there's matching Bucky outfit. Makodou, who's on the call, I believe, he pushed our class so hard, so hard that I ended up writing by accident because I misread the instructions. That's on me. A 40-page literature review and research proposal on how we can use polymorphic alleles in Senegalese tribes to make more specific and more targeted strains of vaccines. But I wrote all of it in French. And it is because of Makodou Fall that I realized that I can do research in French. And that made me apply to another experience that we'll be talking about in a second. I went to Miami with this group of friends.
Anna, this is your time check.
Oh, yeah. Let me get through it. So, yeah, great. We went to Senegal. Here's some photos. You can check out my blogs and my videos. It was very fun. It was amazing. Shout out to my host family. Je vous adore, je sais que vous êtes là. My host sister, my host mom, they genuinely changed Senegal for me. They were my family. And then I had the great privilege of traveling with my family to Portugal, to Morocco, to Senegal. And I got to share that with them. And then I'm back for my last semester, and it's been an amazing semester. It has been so great seeing all of you again and hanging out with all of my friends and everyone that matters to me. And I'm so glad for every single one of you that I have invited. You mean something to me. Every single person in this room and online, and every person, even if they couldn't make it, that I invited to this, they shaped my college career in one way or another. And don't worry about that middle picture. But that I think is the point of going out and doing things and learning. And serving and graduating and moving on. And now I will always be a roadrunner, but now I'm also going to be studying a master's of neuroscience, an M1 in Marseille, fully funded by the Lafayette Fellowship in France. And I think that that's a pretty nice way of wrapping up everything that I've done here. So thank you to all of you.
Fantastic. So, Anna, I am so appreciative of the intricacies and depth and complexity of your end of your senior exit, actually. I want to first and foremost thank you for the friendship that you've shown me and have shown my colleagues. Some of the actual best times in this job have been when you have showed up to my office and you, me, and Fernando are talking shop, the mountains, the valleys, what Erie's up to. All of us, our entire team holds a very, very true and special love for you and your accomplishments. And I know it's going to transcend borders and continents in the future. We're all also super emotional about your final few days here on this campus, and your presence will be missed. But collectively, all of us, Christy, Melissa, myself, Fernando, whomever else builds upon your legacy, are just fundamentally better people for having such a small connection to you. So thank you.
I love you guys.
Yeah, it's been a real joy. I will not say anything more so that other folks in the room have time. Other faculty maybe in the room, if it, anything, our other guests, our non-student guests.
Yeah, I have to sneak out, so I want to say something about Nicole Wichita. And I'm so glad that you started your journey with us and with me in the lab, and always brought energy and curiosity and craziness to the lab. And I'm really proud and I'm impressed with everything you've accomplished and done, and your bravery, and you're traveling all over the world and learning all those languages. And I can't wait to see what you do next. So keep in touch.
I will.
Thanks, you guys.
Muchas gracias.
Bye.
Thank you for coming.
Mucho gusto. Felicidades. Muchos padres.
I would like to say something.
Yes, mother.
I'm not going to cry. It's going to be very short. Anna, your dad, your brother, and I are beyond proud of you for everything you have already accomplished at such a young age. From the day you were born, you had a smile on your face and you were ready for success. We can wait to see what the future holds for you, and we will be there to celebrate with you, of course. Congratulations, God bless you forever. We love you.
From the students in the room, maybe?
Yes, go ahead.
No, I'll just say that Anna, whenever I think about you or I talk about you to other people, the way that I describe you is like quick, that she is like one of the smartest, funniest people that you will ever meet because of how quick-witted she is. And I have just, like, these last 4 years have meant so much to me. I'm so grateful for your friendship. I love you so much. And I'm so excited for everything you're gonna do.
Yes, Ricky.
I know we say this so many times, but I still remember our first phone call when I got on the phone with you and I had a Word document of so many questions. And I was like, do you like Anna or Anna? That was my first question. You were like, I don't care. Okay, so question one, I have it, and you answered every single question, but you also kept on answering my questions when I came here, because I always have so many. You are just such a mentor to me, but also such a close friend. Similar to Michael, when I talk about you, I see oh, she's so smart, she's so amazing, she does all of these things, but you're also so personable and you're so vulnerable. And I think that side of you has really impacted me. And so I'm so excited to see what you do. And yes, please stay in contact. Yeah, I'm super excited to see you in France.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Ricky.
of course.
Yes, Jess.
And you are just such an amazing, well-rounded person, and you push me to be a learner, to be empathetic. I love the way that you completely filled up this room and you filled up the Zoom link, because everybody just loves you. You're so personable, you're so smart, and I just love every single one of my conversations with you because I feel like I leave the conversation learning something, whether it's some really interesting fact about, I don't know, neuroscience, psychology, etc. One of your many expertises, or just something about yourself, or something about how you care for others. And I don't know, I just find you so nurturing and so amazing. And I hope that we never, ever lose contact. And I cannot wait to visit you in France, and I can't wait for you to visit me and Austin. And I just love you so much, Anna. Seriously, thank you for being a part of my life.
Okay, let's read this. So that's Swahili, so I don't read that. Thank you, Zach.
Chat. Let's see what people are drawing.
Yes, so yes.
Yeah, Margot.
Mohammed said, woohoo, hello, Mohammed. Mark said félicitations, Anna, merci.
Let's hear from Margot.
Zach, thank you. Wait, and like speaking?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wait, how do I do that? Oh, hello, Margot.
let's see.
Okay,
Sorry, I'll let you read the chat. This will be quick, but I just wanted to say hi. I'm so proud of you. You have done so many amazing things. I was just like already with the freshman year, which I remember a lot of. I was like, there's so much more. How is she gonna get through everything? So I just wanted to say that I'm so proud of you. I'm so grateful. When I met you at your selection, I was like a French speaker. Like, I'm so excited to have someone else interested in this in the program. And I'm so grateful that you got to also work at ESA and get to know those kids and that we share that and we share the French club and we share the love of Madam Hall and the love for her. So I'm just very glad to have known you. I'm so proud of you and I'm so excited for you. But much love.
thank you, Margot. I love you so much. Genuinely, so much of this is because of you. So thank you.
We have to transition.
Yes.
So I'm really
Yes.
sorry.
Okay. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I love you all.